Howdy, folks. Happy Thursday. We're out of March, and I know a lot of people hated that month. So we're on to April, and one day closer to the playoffs and one day closer to the trade deadline. 11 days to go until the trade deadline. We'll be ramping up our coverage, and we'll be doing our usual trade deadline show on deadline day with a variety of guests. But we'll start today with the pre-show. Go ahead, Russ.
Okay, so let's talk about the Francisco Lindor contract and the fact that Anthony would not give me credit because I said 10 years, $340 million to the owner, Stephen Cohen, and it was $341. You know the choice word I have for you, Anthony, but that was pretty good. I'm glad I saved the tweet. I had a lot of fun with that last night with a lot of different people.
Well, I said
if I'm yeah, you first, Mike. Go ahead.
Go. Russ hit it on target, but I'm wondering whether he got a secret source, and that was somebody with the same last name that sort of slipped it to him. You know, because they're related, fifth, sixth cousins.
Clan Cohen,
right?
Yeah. To be perfectly exact, but again, I'm happy. Listen, at the end of the day, you know, I did tell you it was going to happen.
You did. You were right.
You have little faith. I told you that was.
It wasn't looking great. It got down to the last hour.
It did, but they got it done. At the end of the day, it's kind of like me waiting on. It was like this whole winter of me waiting on Real Muto as a Philly.
Yes.
Same principle here.
Mm-hmm.
So you know that's kind of where that went. And if I'm not busting your stones, Russ, what good am I?
That's true.
You bust
that's
mine,
fair.
and that's the way it goes. So that 1 million was just like, oh, good. I needed that little window to tweak them.
Yeah, no, that's fair. So, but I wanted to talk about opening day in general. Opening day for me is like the greatest day on earth. It beats any sport. It beats anything in my mind because even though it's 50 and raining and Major League Baseball should always start on the West Coast and in domes, They don't. And in Florida, they don't. But at the end of the day, it does signify that, hey, spring is coming. Baseball is a part of like your spring, summer. If you like the sport, it's in the background. It's great. And I've got so many great memories. But I'll give you the best one that I have. And it involves the Mets and the Phillies. And that was when Seaver got re-signed by the Mets. And it was him and Carlton opening day. And that was the biggest sellout for about 20-something years until like 86. So it wasn't 20-something years, but it was 3 years. But for many years, no, actually, even through 86, I actually think it was a bigger sellout. You know what it was? Until the 90s, till the Mets started expanding the stadium and adding more seating. The parking was crazy. Like, I didn't get in there until like the second inning because we had to walk like literally half a mile to get in there. But that matchup was great. I've shown pictures like Seaver against Rose, Seaver. It was a lot of fun. Doug Sisk actually didn't screw up that game, so that was fun. But Seaver-Carlton was always a matchup that I enjoyed all through my childhood, and I got one more go at it. And I'm sure Anthony probably felt like, hey, you know what? If you watched it, I'm not sure, but it was a cool moment.
So what year was that? 83?
83.
So probably not at that point because I wasn't really 100. I was 7 years old, and I wasn't quite getting into sports as much until probably around 85, 86.
Okay.
So.
Yeah, I'll give you quickly two. One.
First one's going to give two because you can't ever give one.
No. Actually, one. I'll give you one quick opening day memory, and that was a few years ago when the Yankees opened in Toronto against the Blue Jays. And I went to the game, and because I was up in Toronto because there was a Puck Talks event there, and I think I was gonna be part of the crew. So I went to the game in the morning and the afternoon, and at the time I had a temporary crown on one of my teeth.
Oh, I remember this one. This is
and obviously I had to eat everything on the one side of my mouth because obviously this temporary crown was made of like plaster or something like that. It's just to keep the post in place or whatever. And it had been in there for like a week, and I was successfully had been able to, avoid any contact. Well, I bought a order of chicken fingers and fries at the what used to be the Sky Dome, what's now Rogers Center. And I bit into one and, of course, shifted over to the side of my mouth with the crown. And the chicken finger must have been as hard as the friggin' Hope Diamond because it broke the crown in two. So I had this post hanging out of my mouth or hanging out of my gum, and I basically had to. I got a stick of gum. And
that could be the new season of The Crown on Netflix, really.
There you go. Your bad pun. Okay, and finally,
I wanted to say one more thing. Just to show you, in typical Mets tradition, why we fans have trouble trusting the Mets, Anthony. So after that season of Seaver, he comes back.
Trust issues? No.
he has that season, 83. Wasn't great because the team wasn't great, but he had some moments. In that offseason, the Mets didn't protect him in the Rule 5 draft, so the White Sox select him, and for the next 3 seasons, he goes on to win like 14 games, 15 games, 15 games because they actually had some offense, and that's why we Met fans have trust issues.
Last thing here.
I didn't get. I listen. Everybody else is doing their opening day memory, and I'm
go
not
ahead.
Getting, apparently, guys.
Yes.
No, go on. Go.
No, we want yours.
Do it.
Mine's was 94. Right after the Phillies had gotten to the World Series, and what I remember distinctly about it, we got lucky. We got first base line. We got seats slightly. It was closer to the outfield, probably. I mean, it was first base side, sort of right along the outfield. But what I do remember about that game was that was the game where John Kruk came back after he had his lower. After he had.
So who was starting? Was it like Mulholland?
And he got a hit, and he
Okay.
I'd been in Veteran Stadium. This is back at the old Veteran Stadium, so
yeah.
The noise in that stadium when he got that hit, but at his first at bat, was like nothing as a kid I had not heard.
Oh, that's cool.
Was
Terry Mulholland the starter?
What's that?
Or was it Mulholland starting that one, or is it Schilling?
No, I'm not sure it was Mulholland. It was somebody. Oh God, who was it?
Because I think Mulholland was the best pitcher on the staff.
I think it probably was Mulholland. Well, yeah, because it wasn't Kurt. Kurt was
no, not yet.
Not yet. So I think it was Terry.
Yeah,
I gotta check.
He was a good opening day starter, actually.
Yep. So that was the one for my opening day. I haven't been to many opening days. That was the first. That's the one I can most recently remember. It was senior year of high school too. So
nice.
Yeah.
Okay, in the ultimate troll job, Tom Brady on Twitter says, with opening day today, I'm excited to announce that we're bringing the Expos back to Major League Baseball in 2022. Excited to be the first player, coach, owner in Major League Baseball history. You know what day it is today, which makes everybody act like a complete asshole. Sorry.
I mean, honestly, this is going back to when Brady was trying to steal Tom Terrific and failed. This is his personality, and people don't realize it because he's always trying to portray the "oh shucks, I'm a great guy" part, but he's got this angle in his personality too.
Yes, he's going right after. That's.
Oh, I'm sorry, he did it. I didn't.
Yeah, that's true. Okay, let's
April Fools. It's open season. Listen, we know the man's got more with a little bit of a mean streak in him, but
Okay,
I'm not going to take the greatest level of offense to it the way the two of you are. So
that's fine.
Let's start the show.
Even though he cheated a Super Bowl from your team, but that's okay.
Got revenge.
Yeah, that means he still won. That means he still won 6 fair and square. Hello, Hockey World. Today is Thursday, April 1st, 2021.
I'm Anthony Mangione from Off the Post Radio.
Yes, I am aware that Tom Brady was drafted by the Expos. Randy Workman, stop trying to work this. I'm Russ Cohen from Sportsology.
And I'm Michael Agello, and this is the Hockey Buzzcast here on HockeyBuzz.com. Let's start with – now, the Buffalo Sabres won a game. That is not an April Fool's joke. They won 6-1 over the Philadelphia Flyers last night. So let's get that out of the way, Anthony. When will Alain Vigneault be fired?
He's not. He's not going to be. It's the question I got last night. I'm like, he's not getting fired.
No.
And I'll hold to this at this point now is the fact that things are probably, for people who are expecting massive changes, I'm not sure on that front, at least not in season. I just
right. In season is the key word.
He's in the second year of his contract here with the Flyers after having a pretty successful first season. He's not getting canned. And I'm going to go back to the point of certain members of this Flyers core have been through a few coaches at this point. I think at this point now there'd be far more consideration about changing the player personnel than there would be about the coach.
Of course.
Yeah,
now, and that's the big thing. Hold on. So that's the big thing, though, right? Because Fletcher has really not done a good job changing the personnel since last summer. He still has time to do it now. He's got to do it. I mean, there's no way they could even exist.
The question is the degree of the change and how much of an effect that change will have.
Right. You have to do something. If he does nothing, it will look incredibly bad for Chuck Fletcher.
But you will also need to take a look as well as at the deadline in total for everyone.
Sure.
And see what happens before we can sort of make that final statement. We know that the
totally fair.
Well, okay, this is what I found laughable. In spite of the fact that obviously they fell behind 3-0 and then came back to win 4-3 in game one of the set a couple days ago, and Vigneault scratches Gostisbehere, scratches Nolan Patrick, scratches Lindblom. You won the game.
But he knew that
we know the reason. But again, the factors were given there, Mike, in terms of this is the first. You consider the two players. Lindblom recently returned this season, cancer, ribs been removed, all that.
Right.
Patrick recently removed. Patrick, of course, as well, recently returned as well. First opportunity, both players kind of in their estimation. This is where kind of the sports science, I think, kicks in a little bit. They saw this as they needed to sit. They wanted to get these guys some level of rest.
Right.
And I think that, again, when it was explained that way, plus the cap ramification angle on Gostisbehere, I understood it, at least in that moment, that they were going to have the opportunity to rest them.
That's good. And it wasn't the most convincing of wins anyhow. So it's not like, they could sit on that and say, hey, we really took it to the Sabres.
Exactly. You had 40 minutes. They played 40 minutes of terrible hockey, almost not completely like disinterested.
I'll tell you what I didn't like too.
Third in that night.
So post game, I watched all the interviews, right? Except for Justin Braun. I turned him off. No offense to Justin Braun, but I was done with them. I watched all the post games, and the guy. No, I don't mean him personally. I was done with him.
I know.
Because these guys had the 1,000-mile stare, and other than
one of the better quotes of the evening, you missed that one.
Well, whatever. But Sean Couturier was the only one who was honest enough to say how the team, what they weren't doing. Everybody else was like, I don't know. I really don't know.
Well, I mean, considering the players,
they know.
You have Travis Konecny, who, again, has, for the most part, known success for most of his young career. He's a young player who I think is just completely lost right now in this. He has to be a contributing factor, though.
He is a contributing factor, and he should have said that. That's the issue, is a lot of these guys, that's why Couturier said what he said.
But
because a lot of these guys aren't doing that.
But we also know at this point that many of these questions have been asked.
Yeah, they've
how many different ways you're going to answer basically the same way when you're trying and listen, I mean, I will say this, that I thought the first half of the game, the Flyers were competitive, especially when it was still.
That's fair.
It was a competitive game. There was, definitely they were winning. I think it was equal on board battles. They weren't getting beaten as badly as they were the previous night on board battles. But after they fell behind 4-1, after that fourth goal, you could literally see the air go out. Like at that point, they did stop skating. At that
the biggest thing, though, and this is a testament to the Sabres, is they're a faster team than the Flyers, and it shows. And guys like Middlestat and Dahlin, when they were actually playing on their game, Skinner and Hall, when they actually looked good, they were skating circles at times.
The Sabres have been a fast team for a couple of years. They've been a fast team for a couple of years, and they looked fast in Philly.
And at the end of the day, what good has it done them so far?
No, I know.
Well, no question about it. No question about it. But I'm just saying that
they're good at skating back to the locker room after they've lost.
Brian Benning, I'll say this as well. Brian Benning was skated like the wind back in the day.
Speed is not. I guess speed is not their issue. I mean, I think that I can't see any way that Vigneault survives that game last night when I'm watching it. I'm just going to throw that out there. And I know that people are going to say he's going to be fine, but in my opinion, maybe I'm just.
He doesn't have personnel. It's not his fault.
There's not.
I'm not. It doesn't. It doesn't matter. Like this is like if obviously we're not in an Ed Snyder era anymore. Okay, so I was, but growing up around this team, knowing Ed Snyder really well, getting to know him super well towards the end of his life, just like there is no way if Ed Snyder's here that Vigneault and maybe Fletcher survived last night. Like that's
there's no T-Rex behind you either, but it looks like you're in Jurassic Park. It's a different era.
It's a different era, but there, it's amazing to me that you have like so many people gone from that era that it worries me about the Flyers. It really worries me. Like
I would also counter that, and I can say you're coming off the previous season where they look pretty good.
Yeah,
COVID definitely plays a part in this as
well. Yes, they did.
But I think there would have to be a little bit. I don't. I know it would be very quick trigger. Well, after and now this was here's my ear. Now if this was year 3 and you have 1 year where they were successful and this year and then next year, if this was occurring next year, I'd absolutely be on board with you in saying in the grand scheme of things now, things seem to be lost.
Yeah, first of all, I'm waiting for the Brontosaurus to walk by and nibble on that tree.
I know. It's a bizarre situation I'm in because I'm here helping our in-laws who are like in their 80s. It's a beautiful place to be. I'm also in the middle of trade deadline, so it's crazy. I'm getting calls like nuts right now. So,
but let me just say this about because I don't know we was going to spend a lot of time on this. But the Flyers situation, in my mind, and I'm talking with Russ a lot on this, and talking with Anthony on Off the Post. This team is overdue for a core blow up.
Yep.
It's like you've got, and the thing is, I don't know how Chuck
can't do it though.
Right, that's the thing. They're either going to have to buy out Voracek or give Seattle something really significant to take Voracek off their roster, or trade Giroux. I think Giroux's still effective, but he might be tradable because he's only got a year left in his contract. There's got to be something made, and they sort of have to move on to the new core group, the guys like Farabee and Konechny and Hayes.
Couturier is still part of that. And Couturier is still part of that.
Couturier is the captain.
It's the late 20s guys that you need to count on now. That's like, to me, it's like the mid to late 20s. That's what you're looking at. That's where every team's real meat is right now. And right now, this team's players that are doing the best and they're counting on the most tend to be like we've said before, like 30s and early 20s. So like they need to get the late 20 guys. It's got to be those. It's got to be Couturier, who's mid 20s, but
he's the next captain.
He's either him or Provorov is next captain. I think Provorov has a shot at being next captain too. But I think that both of those guys, I would name Couturier captain now.
I would probably say Couturier at this point. I mean, I would probably say in this, if you're looking at the leadership structure, Provorov's probably it would probably be Couturier, Provorov, Hayes probably is the other.
I think that's what it would be.
Yeah.
I think that's what it'd be. Although Hayes has been very disappointing since early in the season. He's really has been like considering how strong he was.
He is definitely
how strong he was last year in the playoffs. And this Flyers team last year, people, everybody sits there and why I say Vigneault should be gone. It's not just the fact that the team has struggled, but it's the fact that yes, they looked good in the playoffs last year, but and they looked great at the end of the year going into the playoffs, which is there's a huge 3-month gap in there, 4-month gap in there. So it's hard to really put those things together, but I think I don't see any way that the way they went out in the playoffs too, with just being outcoached, and yes, they were outclassed by the Islanders, but they were just outcoached every which way, and they've been outcoached every which way this year.
I mean, the thing is though, if you say for example, they fire Vigneault, then all you do and all you've done is give a pass to the players who have failed again. That's all you're doing. It's like I don't think this is on Vigneault. I think this is on the group that has been assembled there, and it's on the general manager because, again, and I don't know how many times I have to say it, he missed the ball when Niskanen retired, and he signs an offense-only guy who couldn't play defense, and his life depended on it, and Erik Gustafsson, instead of going out and trading for or signing a veteran defenseman to play with Provorov.
But who was out there, Mike, really legitimately?
I suggested Ron Hainsey at 39 is better than Erik Gustafsson.
They weren't going to bring in Ron Hainsey to play in your top.
No,
Ron Hainsey for top six. If you're trying to find somewhat of a replacement in this circumstance.
Yes.
The market this summer was not that. I mean, it just wasn't there going into,
really
no, he would have had to made a big trade.
So
it
would have
two
big
defensemen over
yeah.
and it didn't work. And at the end, and
right.
they also, again, there was a calculation that, based off of the step forwards that both Travis Sanheim and Phil Myers had made, especially in that series against Montreal, how good they were in that Montreal series, that they wanted to see if they could take the step forward. And Sanheim I would say at the beginning of this season had been making a pretty good step forward. And then when COVID hit, things seemed to fall off a cliff for a lot of these guys, Phil as well.
Yeah.
And again, the guys they were counting on to make that step forward to maybe step into those roles and have learned those lessons, it hasn't happened.
One interesting stat from yesterday's game on the Sabre side, Allmark gets the win, and he's played good since coming back from the injury. They are over 500. The Sabres are over 500, 6-5-3 with Allmark in goal, and he has a 917 or 918 save percentage, which for a terrible defensive team like Buffalo is fantastic. They're 1-18-2 with Carter Hutton or Tokarski or Johansson in goal.
The rest.
And Allmark is a UFA, and if you think Allmark is signing in Buffalo unless he gets overpaid, you're nuts. So I honestly I would put him on. I would put him on the.
No, I thought about it. I thought about it for the deadline, but I also think that the one thing that keeps him in Buffalo is how many teams are going to say you're the starter. There's not that many teams as a goalie that matters to goalies. There's not many teams that are going to say they're going to hand him the starting job.
No, but I think he's good enough that people see what he's done in Buffalo with a bad team in front of him, and they say, okay, we need a goaltender. This guy with us, with our defense, which is better, is going to be
Carolina
for sure.
Carolina.
For sure, but Carolina is still in love with Mrazek, which is ridiculous. And they also
are. There's no question there.
Yeah.
And Carolina's defense, and Carolina loves their kid too, so that's their guy in the future.
Now, speaking of goaltenders, I wanted to touch on this. Yesterday after the show, it was announced Thatcher Demko signs a 5-year, $25 million contract.
Yeah.
Now, Russ, this is a fantastic deal.
Yep.
Because he's getting paid. This is like he's middle of the pack. He's 14, 15, 16, something like that in the league in terms of goaltenders, in terms of salary. But the way he played in the last month or so is the way he played in the bubble. He's not a middle of the pack goalie. He's better than that.
No, I mean, you have to look at his whole package. I mean, what he's done before the league and what he's doing now. And there's a little bit of risk. There's always a little bit of risk. But this is one of the better contracts the Canucks have signed in like the last 2-3 years. They have obviously had some horrible contracts. But this is one of their better ones because they've learned something here. They're like, okay, look, we lost a really good goalie. So let's lock him up. Let's not lock him up too long, but let's give him security that he's looking for, and let's give us security until he gets to like 30 years old. And then we'll all see where we're at that point. And you know what? Good move for Vancouver.
Yeah. Now they have the big two challenges is getting Hughes and getting Pedersen signed. But I heard somebody yesterday, and I think it's pretty accurate. Coming off an injury-plagued year with Pedersen, and Hughes is having a good year, but with the pandemic and with revenues limited and the cap staying at 81.5. It's likely that these guys sign bridge deals, that they sign 2-3 year bridge deals, because I don't know if Vancouver is going to be in the position to sign.
It could happen. If it does happen, it will bite Vancouver in the end, though. They should do everything they can to not have that happen, especially for two players. Because once you start doing the two-player thing, you end up losing one somewhere along the line. And so I would do my best to I would still pay them top of the market value. I wouldn't care if they're having an off year or not. You know what Pedersen is capable of, and he's not at the top of his game yet. He's still got a way to go. And you know what Hughes is, and when he gets better defensively, he'll even be better. And he was good defensively in other areas. So, like when he played at Michigan and he played with the NTDP, he just has to get better defensively for the NHL. It's another jump for him. It's going to be the same jump like Cam York will have to make.
Yeah.
He has all the other things handled, but he has to play better defensively and a little more physically at times too. You still got to pay these guys top of the market, or you will eventually lose them.
Yeah. What is the sound that we're getting, Mike?
It's Anthony's cell. There's a little crack.
And maybe my cell again from my car. I'm getting a bit of a stat.
Yeah, no, I appreciate it. So they're fine, just making sure. Yeah, cool. No problem at all. All right, so I want to talk briefly because I may have to run in a little bit here, getting lots of calls, texts, and things like that. Plus, I have like fun family things happening. So Matt Kierstead about this morning.
Here, see if I get a little bit better.
Cool. Yeah, mute Anthony for now.
Yep.
Just until we figure it. So Matt Kierstead today signs with the Panthers. Officially did sign him last night. This is a player that quite a few teams were interested in.
I mean, North Dakota produces defensemen. They do.
And this
They're known
is
for that.
And Florida has some good young defensemen. They needed another one. And it's a good college. It's like your typical college, like middle road guy that I think that you can really.
And that's what it is. You know what it is? I have games still on my DVR. I've watched some North Dakota for the last few years. But when you have guys like Sanderson and Bernard Docker, the really top flight guys that North Dakota gets, they overshadow guys like this. So he is good. He is a good puck mover. He is a good skater. You do have to see what he's going to do on his own. But again, you're signing to an ELC. It's a no lose here.
Yeah, right. And you mentioned Bernard Docker. He just signed his ELC with Ottawa too. So
I think you're going to see a lot of these in the next couple of days.
Newhook signed with Colorado. Spencer Knight signed with Florida. There was another prominent one that Cam York, obviously.
Cam York, yeah. I'll tell you what the thing is. I think players are rushing to sign now because of everything that happened with COVID. It really did muck up the works for colleges. Yeah. And because there's still like this little question in everybody's mind what's going to happen next year as far as attendance with colleges, and still would the Ivies stay out of it one more year? Like, you don't know, right? Until they actually say they're back in it. That is precipitating and speeding up the signing process for a lot of these guys.
It is. And I think, with a guy like with Kierstead, what I was basically told is here's a guy who has like the they really is a guy you can really trust, and that they're looking for that solid.
He's solid. There's no question he's solid. And like I said, that is a defenseman factory. It really is. But the problem is, like I said, you get so mesmerized with Bernard Docker and Sanderson that guys like this do tend to fade into the woodwork there. But he'll do something, and he has a chance to be an NHLer for sure.
Yeah. And obviously the Spencer Knight signing too, like you talked about, Mike, which is like an interesting one given the situation in Florida.
We'll go to the AHL this year, so this year there's no problem.
But looking forward, if you're Spencer Knight.
Now I haven't seen.
I think Anthony was going to say something.
Go ahead, Anthony. Go ahead.
And again, what do we know about goaltending is that things do change. Whatever the scenario is in Florida right now, in a year or two may not be, and Knight may find himself on a pathway to starting. So
now the one thing I haven't seen with a lot of the college players is whether they've signed years and they're burning the first year of ELC, which you can do. And I would think guys like York and Knight and Newhook are doing that so they get close to RFA. But I haven't seen the contract details yet. I'll be curious.
I haven't either
to see what happened. And Ferentz signed with the Predators, and
Ferentz is another big one.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. No, the college hockey puts out a lot of guys. I think you're definitely right about the COVID thing, Russ, as far as that's bringing some of them out quicker, and out to make sure that they get something done here. I don't know if we're going to see. We talked about Caulfield. We'll probably see Caulfield in the NHL this year. I don't know if we'll see any of these other guys in the NHL this year.
You might see him for a game. If the Flyers fall out of it, you might see York.
This is what I'll see. But again, depending on where Philadelphia is at, you might see a few games for York towards the end of the season if they are really out of it, and if York is coming along pretty well with the Phantoms.
Yeah. It definitely makes the Phantoms an interesting team to go watch now because they're
good. They're having. I think there's a ton of talent on that Phantoms team right now. They're really clicking very well.
Yeah, they're clicking. They're a good team. It's a great situation to put. Yeah, it's a great situation for York to go to because he comes into that situation now. can go to a team that's winning, there with a good vibe going on there and everything that's happening there.
Yep.
That's a much better situation for him to grow and develop in, obviously.
Not that much different than the Rochester Buffalo situation, really, in many ways.
Yeah.
You have young players. You have to ask yourself if the situation on the team is not good.
Yeah.
From a mental standpoint, what are you throwing them in immediately for?
Well, there's no way. The one thing that the Sabres won't do this year is bring up Ukko-Pekka Luukkonen because, they signed Michael Hauser, a veteran guy who I think is like 29 or 30 years old, to an NHL contract just to have a body to prevent Luukkonen from having to come up. It makes no sense for him to be on the taxi squad. He needs to play, just like Joseph Wall and Ian Scott in Toronto. These are goaltenders who haven't played. One hasn't played in 2 years. Another one hasn't played in a year. They need to play games. These players at the AHL level, I don't know how much development has been robbed from them because of COVID.
Oh yeah,
They need
to been some. I mean, a week ago when we were talking about everything that was going on when Kruger got fired, I mentioned to Mike, hey, on the show, they should bring up Stephen Fogarty. He's not a big-time goal scorer. Like yesterday was a nice game for him. But he is a guy that plays around the net, and he's physical, and he's big. And so at this point, that's the kind of guy you've got to see for a certain amount of games with the Sabres to see what you have in him because he's never really gotten a chance with any organization he's been with. Those are the kinds of guys I want to know. Like yesterday, I saw the speed through the neutral zone at a Casey Middlestat. I saw him more confident where he was making some great passes. So for the people that want to say bust, you have to stop. There's a lot of turmoil going on.
You cannot judge young players.
And honestly, you cannot judge almost every player on the Sabres because of the slip shot management and not management, but their coach. I can't blame Kevin Adams for the disaster that has happened so far. But the coaching, Ralph Kruger was the Rex Ryan of the Buffalo Sabres. He was propped up to be this big, successful coach, and he was a frigging unmitigated disaster.
I mean, based on what Kevin Allen told us, he's Ted Lasso. And if you don't know what that is, go look up the series. But he really was.
Great
More
show.
a reverse Ted Lasso in this case.
Great show. I got to run, guys.
All right, we'll handle the rest of it.
Keep an eye out on the rumor chart. It's going to be updated in the next 2 hours, and everything's going to be happening. And then we'll be back again tomorrow.
There was one more guy, Mark. Mike Randy mentioned Jan Kuznetsov. I did a whole report on him for EP last year before the draft, and I said I thought he'd be a second or third rounder. He's a Russian defenseman who skates well, who has offensive ability, but he is raw. And he was playing for UConn, and so this is the kind of guy that definitely needs the AHL for a couple of years, at least 2 years.
Sure.
To kind of get the skating right, to get the tempo right. But there's a lot of raw ability there. So that guy, I actually think, has some good upside there. So, Okay.
Now, Anthony, yesterday we talked about Connor McDavid getting fined $5,000 for probably something that another player would have been suspended for a game for.
Not according to Edmonton media, though.
Oh, of course.
Of course not.
Yes, but last night, I don't know if there's something in the water when it comes to star players, but Nathan McKinnon went banana hammock and lost his mind again.
More like throwing coconuts.
with grabbing Connor Garland's helmet and throwing it at him. I never knew that Connor Garland was that annoying of a player. Now the thing was, earlier in the game, he got rocked by I think Alex Goligoski, so things were out of hand in that game. But I mean, okay, I'm all for star players sticking up for themselves, but then if they go overboard and do that, that's when I think they should be penalized like regular players.
I think because you play these teams, and again, as much as the NHL wanted to hype up the whole, regional league setup of this year, you don't necessarily. There's still a spread out of games, and I think you get to know the players on the other team even better, and not in a good way. And they do one little thing that really annoys the hell out of you, and there's more of a chance that player that you don't normally would see snap goes and snaps. And I really think that's what's occurred here in both of these circumstances. That McDavid got his burr under his saddle with Coach Kaniemi about something. What it is, I'm not sure. But Garland, I mean that's what it struck me as being just these teams are sick of seeing each other. and they're
right.
And they're losing.
The only thing I'll say is I watched some of this game.
Now over it.
I watched some of this game, and Arizona looked like a JV team compared to Colorado. And I think that's what caused all these problems is Colorado's was just beating them into the ground offensively. It didn't matter who was in net, right? They didn't have Kemper, so they went with Aiden Hill. Aiden Hill is not an NHL goalie. Protasov or Prostalev, I forget, because there's a couple different Russian goalies. He looked pretty good for a guy that got thrown in cold, but of course he gave up a goal right away. That team is in trouble. For as long as Kemper is out, they are in trouble. They're probably not making the playoffs. They're probably going to have to sell again. It's the same old story for their fans.
Well, the only thing that's keeping them in the playoff race, Russ, is that St. Louis is doing as bad as they are. I mean, they're only and now. I mean,
St. Louis will get it together to some degree. They will.
I would think so, but can Bill Armstrong go out and sell Garland or sell Goligoski, Demers, and Yarmulson when you're 1 point out of the playoffs?
He'll wait until April 12th.
And that's the thing. That's what comes down with a lot of these trades. We're all sort of waiting on bated breath here when we expect them to happen sooner. They're probably not. They're going to wait to the last second, especially a team like Arizona.
Well, that's okay. That's supposedly what the talk yesterday. Darren Drager was talking about the Taylor Hall and the pursuit of Taylor Hall. That the phone is ringing off the hook for Kevin Adams, but that essentially he's probably going to wait until the 8th, 9th, 10th of April, like a day or 2, 3 at most behind before the deadline to make that move. The only thing I'd be concerned about, and I can't remember who brought this up. I think it was Elliot Friedman, or no, Pierre LeBrun brought it up, whether the Sabres will sit Hall out because they, if they lose him, if he gets injured, that their return is, it's gone. So,
again, it's a horrible thing to do for your other teammates to watch this guy sit on the bench because you don't want him to get hurt. You can't do it.
And I think maybe you see him sit a game or two right before the 12th.
Yeah.
That's when you would see Hall sit, but not until then.
No, not until then.
Yeah, it's not like the NBA with Andre, like with the Cavaliers and Andre Drummond. And look what honestly happened with Drummond. He's already having some injury concerns already with the Lakers. Yeah. Because probably he sat out for so darn long.
Right.
That now that he's back in game action, this is a concern. So I think that's kind of a warning sign that if you're going to sit a guy out, make sure it's not for longer than 1 or 2 games if you are trying to protect the asset.
Right. Now, a couple other games last night. Cal Peterson with 40 saves and a 4-2 win over Vegas. I'll tell you, Russ, you look at Quick and he looks pedestrian. You look at Peterson and he looks like a starter. And I don't know why. I understand the respect that the organization has for Quick because he won them 2 Stanley Cups, but the better goalie is Peterson now.
They just don't want to overload Peterson. I had the pleasure of seeing him in a region, East Regionals or some other regional, the NCAAs, all kinds of regionals, but really in high-pressure situations, and he really looked good to me. So I knew he was going to be a terrific NHL goalie. I don't know how the Sabres let him slip through their fingers, unless he really didn't want to play for him. But I don't know if they ever offered him a contract. They may not have.
Right.
All that said, I'll tell you what else I wanted to highlight in that game. I wanted to highlight Elias Anderson, who scored his second goal, because he, at the end of the period, was fist bumping everybody going into the locker room, and that's the Elias Anderson that I know. The Elias Anderson that happened in New York was a guy that got rushed to the league, had trouble adjusting, and really didn't get any help from the organization while he was having that trouble adjusting. He goes to the Kings, who are known to really take their time with guys and handle a lot of things differently than other teams. And now we're getting some results out of Elias Anderson. And look, I don't expect him to be a superstar. He was never going to be that. He was just a guy that played hard-nosed hockey that would get you some goals because around the net, he's pretty good. You know what? Good for the Kings. They're getting mileage out of him.
Yeah, the Elias Anderson that we know, the one that cares, is the one that threw the silver medal into the crowd in Buffalo, not the one that was sort of going through the motions in New York because he thought he was getting screwed.
He's enjoying hockey again, and I was really happy to see that.
Yes. The other game last night was the Leafs beating Winnipeg 3-1. Jack Campbell with 26 saves. Russ, the thing I notice about Campbell more than, and when Anderson is on, he's like this, but Campbell is very efficient. He doesn't give up lots of rebounds. He sort of engulfs the puck. I mean, there were instances last night when the Leafs were up 2 goals in the third period, and you had 2 guys standing on the door waiting for the rebound, and Campbell didn't give up anything. And that is always a bit, the efficiency of not giving up those second chances. That is a key for a player.
When Campbell's right mentally, he has an economy of movement for sure, and he also really can make a team feel very confident because when he's right, he doesn't care that guys are crashing the net. He's one of those goalies where that doesn't really bother him. I heard this a couple times last night, and good goalies can do this. I don't know why announcers are amazed that when there's a maze of players in the front, that a goalie can make a glove save. It's not that he could see the puck. The goalie is guessing based on the way the setup is, where the puck's going to come from, and hoping he is going to be in that area. And that's how guys can do it. And really, honestly, Campbell has always been good at tracking the puck. Yeah. And that's another thing. And so Anderson is capable of making the greater save than Campbell, but Campbell makes the ones you're supposed to make at this point in his career. And look, it took him a while, and sometimes it takes a goalie till 25, 26 to really start getting it right, like Devin Dubnyk. Like, it does happen. It's not unheard of. So I think there's something there, but also I felt like the Kerfoot goal was a tremendous goal. Like, that's one where he is like, don't count me out for my job or playing time, because that was a good statement goal for him to kind of keep his job.
Yeah, I think he's an effective player, and he's playing right now. He's playing with Spezza and Thornton, and and this was a shorthanded goal, so it was
shorthand. He really showed off his speed, but he would always play the PK at Harvard, and he was always good at it.
And he didn't play PK for Colorado, and one of the first things that the Leafs did is decide to use him on the PK. Now, one thing, and we'll get off the Leafs here after this. One thing that is a concern. I mean, obviously, Campbell being able to follow up and play the next game is a concern, and there's supposed to be an update on Anderson today regarding his status. But the Leafs power play, which was operating at almost a 40% clip at the beginning of the year, is 0 for its last 22. I know things are cyclical, and I know teams adjust. And then, but this is the thing, Russ. I came up to one thing. Teams are jumping on once they get into the zone and they enter the zone. They're jumping on either Marner or Matthews right away, and allow them to dish the puck. But I think you see here the effect of Morgan Riley, who does not have a great shot at the point. He's a great distributor of the puck. If you notice the PK, they're not on top at the point. They don't respect his shot. They're basically daring him to shoot, and they're waiting for him to pass.
Well, based on everybody else who's on that power play, he is the guy that you're willing to let shoot because they have so many snipers on it. I'll tell you what Marner has done the last couple of games that I've watched that I feel like he's been better, and this is why I actually put him when we did this. We did our mid-season awards for EP Ringside. I put Marner in there for the Hart, and the reason I did was I always felt like he was a winger that could drive play, right? Mostly you hear centers driving play, but I always felt like it. But now he is like getting close and getting around the crease area where he is a threat to score and then dishing it the last minute. So he makes the goalie have to really decide now, is Mitch Marner going to shoot and score because he can do it, obviously, or is he? And I feel like he's getting more goalies to bite on the fact that he might shoot now, and I think he's driving even more play as a result.
Question. Yep. Who runs the power play? Which assistant coach runs the power play for the Leafs?
I believe it's Manny Malhotra.
Malhotra runs it. Okay. I'm wondering whether or not. Again, I wonder whether or not because I wasn't aware because when I see low to high working, I'm thinking Dave Haxtell. I just want to clarify. At least have that clarification.
Yeah, from what I understand, Haxtell is primarily working with the defense and the penalty killing, and Malhotra works with the forwards and the power play.
Got it. One thing about Malhotra, that you should look for the Leafs, but you don't get in the locker room right now. None of us do. Malhotra used to skate barefoot. He was one of those guys that actually, he would go barefoot into the ice skates. I kind of wonder if everybody on the Leafs has done that.
Wow. Yeah, I know their face-off percentage has gotten significantly better.
He was a shark on face-offs.
Yeah, Matthews is winning at like 53%. Spezza, I think, is over. I think he's 56 or 57.
Spezza is good anyhow, right?
Yeah. But
the one thing about Spezza that I do want to give him credit for is, God, he's moving back, and I'm happy for Spezza.
Yeah, no, and you know what? Honestly, he wants to continue to play. He loves what he's doing. We lost Russ there for a second. He loves what he's doing. He's 37 years old. He still can skate. He's still really fast, Anthony Spezza. He still can score. He's really still an effective player, and they're playing him 10, 11 minutes a night, and he's content with that, and he loves being on the team. I think he will sign a league minimum deal for another 2 or 3 years just to stay in Toronto. His family's from there, and he loves playing, and that's great. That's what they need.
And you can probably also, once we get into the postseason, you may see a little uptick. If he's playing well, you may see an uptick on that. He's got that. And he won't have the mileage that he normally would have had, say, when he was in Dallas or in prior stops.
Now, a couple things, and then on the show. They canceled postponed Calgary and Vancouver last night when they already had one positive in Adam Gaudette, and then apparently a second player and somebody of the coaching staff was also diagnosed, or at least they were on the list. I don't know if they were positive, but they were on the COVID protocol list. So we don't know whether this is a situation that's going to repeat what happened with Montreal, where they shut them down for over a week. But if they shut down Vancouver for over a week, that's going to have ramifications for like everybody in the North Division. In
scheduling, it's going to throw scheduling out of whack. For sure.
Yeah, I mean, already right now they're saying that Edmonton and Montreal, to make up those games, are going to be playing games the last 2 days. I think it was the 10th and 11th of May, and then like the playoffs start like the 13th. So. They have everything scheduled, but that, I still think I think it's a long shot that they're going to have, like win percentage or points percentage, but you may have teams miss a couple games. And if Vancouver misses games, they're out of the playoffs.
Yeah. That's the worst case scenario. Yeah. They're going to try everything they can to not do that.
Now, like I said, Drager was, talking about
before Drager, can we mention the Blackhawks game for a minute?
Go ahead.
The Canes right now, they've been getting great offensive effort from like Netchis, and Dougie Hamilton's having this great year. By the way, I guess it doesn't matter that Dougie Hamilton doesn't hang out with his teammates or go to the library or goes to the library rather than going out to the bar because it's COVID and nobody seems to talk about that anymore. That's nice. But they do only have 3 or 4 guys that really they can count on for sustained offense. And that game, they were shooting a lot of shots, but not a lot of offense. Lankinen didn't have to work overly hard. And the Blackhawks only shot 16 shots because Carolina is playing this suffocating defense that they definitely could play. They have the personnel for it. But you could see a scenario where with their goaltending, if all of a sudden their offense, this happens to the best of teams, if their offense dries up even a little bit at the worst time in the playoffs, they're going to get eliminated even though they're a good team. You could just see it.
You want to know something? It was because I was using the NHL app to look up the scores. They didn't have Carolina Chicago on the app. I cannot believe that. They didn't.
I will tell you this: Svechnikov is struggling now. He has 10 goals. But he's struggling a bit, and they've got to get him back on track because that's a big part of their offense. But look, their defense is great. Nedeljkovic had a good game, but I am worried that they're going to overuse him. I am so worried about that.
Yeah, and Anthony, the last team that you would think that would want to trade a goaltender would be Carolina because they've got 3 goalies, and I think the only one that I would have any confidence going into just because he's a clean slate is Nedeljkovic. Mm-hmm. And they're talking about and I'm assuming they're talking about trading Mrazek or Reimer to clear cap space to make some other move. Otherwise, it makes no sense.
Yeah. Doesn't make any sense at all at the moment, especially, considering what the situations are. Yeah, doesn't make any sense at all.
Now, by the way, the thing about Nedeljkovic, he's 25. And so, like, he is another one of those guys that's hitting his stride.
He may be hitting that sweet spot period of time now for his career. Yeah.
He's coming up at the same age that Binnington came up when St. Louis went on their run.
And they played him a lot in the minors, and they did it the right way. That's how you do it. Yeah,
he won a Calder Cup with Charlotte. So, but just getting back to the trade rumors, possibly, Hall. We said that's probably going to wait until late. Drager was reporting that the Sabres are getting calls on Ristolainen and on Reinhart. Now, Reinhart is 1 year away from unrestricted free agency. He's an RFA. I think the 1 year deal he signed was like 5.2. He's having his usual Reinhart year. He's going to average out to around 20-25 goals. He'd love to play the Flyers every game.
His agent needs to keep him in the East just for that reason.
Right. Ristolainen's got another year left in his contract.
Yep. Big number though. I mean, that's
I think 5.75. Yeah. But this is the thing, Anthony. This team, the way they're going right now, I don't think they can risk treating anybody who's got term or anybody who's retainable.
They would prefer not to. We know that from the report that they would rather not deal.
But the reason for that is that I don't know whether they can convince free agents to come to Buffalo, even if they overpay them. So you can't let go guys.
They were hoping the Hall signing would be like maybe a little bit of a thing that they got on a little bit of a run this year, that maybe they could start doing that, and instead everything is blown up in their face and Hall's pretty much ready to check out.
Yeah. All right. Good show, guys. We'll be back tomorrow with another.
Actually, I'll answer a question on here, Mike. Hunter asked, the Athletic had big changes in the draft ranking, Gunther moving up 4 spots. Like I said, he's a big, strong guy with a great shot. The question is, will that shot keep going in as he keeps moving up the ladder? And so that's where you have to – I think there's a limit. This is just me as to how high you really want to put him in the draft, because – I get it. He looks like that guy right now. He's got a lot of points. 18 points in 9 games? But I do think you have to sort of balance it out. This is the second year of him doing this, and I don't see. And he is young. I get it. He's another one of those guys that's young for the draft, so the upside is there. But I don't know. I need to see more. It's the same as Arthur Kaliev. Arthur Kaliev is a goal scorer. They've got to do more than goal scoring. I don't know if Gunther does a lot more than goal scoring. So that's my hesitancy with that. And also, we should wish Mike a happy birthday on the show, because
happy birthday, Michael.
That's like I said, 1 year closer to death.
We try and make this a joyous moment.
My birthday is something that I don't look forward to, and I'm glad when it's like the holidays. I don't look forward to them, and I'm glad when they're past. So I'm going to celebrate today by going to a sports bar and hopefully watching the Yankees kick the Blue Jays' ass. But that's not even guaranteed, because I don't know what the weather is like in New York City.
Rooting against your Buffalo Blue Jays again.
Yeah, well, hey, the one good thing is if the Blue Jays come to Buffalo, I may actually be able to go to a Yankees game this year, because I think it's 10 to 20%.
I thought they were down in Dunedin.
They're starting in Dunedin, but after a while, I think they're going to move to Buffalo, because Dunedin only has very limited seating, so they'd have a chance with 20% seating to have like 4,000 people paying major league prices to go to games in Buffalo, whereas you're probably having a couple hundred down in Dunedin. So we'll see.
I did want to clarify one thing with Gunther. He does play defense. It's not that. There's other things in the game though that I feel like he has to get better at. Mike, give us one bad birthday memory that made you not like your birthday so much.
The fact that I was born at 11:58, and I told my mother many a time, couldn't you have just held on for 2 more minutes? So I was born on April the 2nd. For Anthony Mangione, for Russ Cohen, for the departed Eklund, I'm Michael Agello. Thanks for watching, and remember, without the buzz,